Mr. Cates.
Just a couple of comments on the affordable housing issue after the public session when the village council weighed in. I think Jean raised the question of what is our history here, and our history here is one of talk as opposed to implementation. And right now we're approaching implementation, so we do not have a history on implementation of affordable housing. I also think that some of the publicity generated after the meeting, such as the La Rosa issue, really when you examine it in depth, it has nothing to do with affordable housing. There you had a home that went below water, so they couldn't refinance, and you had somebody losing their pay. And affordable housing, unfortunately, it couldn't help somebody who is a meritorious person, and it's sad, but that can't be what governs. A point was brought up as far as the affordable housing could be for retired Winnetka residents, and I believe Kathy indicated that would be difficult, and my reading of that is that it might be difficult because it would be impermissible discrimination against other protected classes. So I think it needs more study by the village because you have retired people looking at this affordable housing ordinance as a safety valve for them. And if it's not a safety valve for them, I think that it should be pointed out. And I think that that's very important. We have 170 affordable housing units. If we're under the Affordable Housing Act, which requires 10%, then that would take 170 to 418, which I think isn't even imagined by the Affordable Housing Plan. In the history of passing the referendum for affordable housing, 4 presidents of the Winnetka Village issued a report in October of 2004, which presumably went through the village attorney as well. And that report stated that the Affordable Housing Act, as to it, we were exempt. And we were also exempt from caps, and I have that report here, and that report was circulated to the residents when they voted on affordable housing. And in the 2005 ordinance enacted by this council, it specifically says in the ordinance, wherefore, that we are exempt. And I think it's important that that be determined. IDA, Illinois Housing Development, does not recognize home rule as being an exception to their requirements. And in their list, they list as subject to it Highland Park, Wilmette, and Deerfield, which were always home rule municipalities. And yet, on the IDA list, which I have with me, they're listed as being municipalities that are subject to that act. And that huge differential between available right now and what's required under the Act, when people say the percentages might be different, IDA does not recognize those percentages. So it was indicated that if we litigate it, it's going to be expensive. And I point out that we litigated the museum issue with voluntary legal help. On the gun issue, you were offered voluntary legal help by an exemplary firm, so it need not be expensive to litigate. Then it was pointed out if we won the litigation, the legislature would just stick it in anyhow. Well, with all the affordable housing communities subject on that list, I do not think you can make that presumption. I think if it were won, I doubt that it would not be a simple thing that the legislature just would stick home rule communities in. And to that end, and we're in changed times, but I think it might be valuable, for instance, if the village caused there to be a conference of home rule communities, such as we've got the Northwest Municipal League. You need home rule entities to get together and plan and be a force in Springfield, and it might be an idea for the village president to send out invitations to other home rule communities to confer about such issues. So my general point is that we should not freeze our position regarding the application of home rule, and that there are questions that have to be answered that go to fundamental aspects of the applicability of the state statute.
Thank you, Mr. Cates.